Page 6, March On. This is covering what's known as a C major position, and I'll come back to that in just a minute. On pages 4 and 5, they got a whole bunch of stuff on there. Yuck. Or yay, depending on which way you feel. To me, it's always been yuck, but some people enjoy it. I'm going to talk about all the things on these pages as we go through the book. I don't like having, it's like, do you have to sit there and try and memorize all that stuff up front? And I say, no, please don't. Unless you have a photographic memory, don't bother with it. You're going to be using it throughout the book, and I'll explain it, and you can learn it as we go. But just briefly, let's just talk about a little bit of it, because we're going to use that for the piece we're doing today. And that is, top of page 4 is the grand staff. And a grand staff consists usually of two staff. A staff is that group of 5 lines. And there's 2 of them. You can see there's 2 of them. You know. They're connected with vertical lines of various places, and these vertical lines all have names, or most all of them do. We'll get to that later. And there's clef signs at the beginning, and they're funny looking little things at the beginning there of each staff. We'll get to those. And then there's a brace. It's the brace I'm after. The brace is what identifies it as a grand staff. And keyboard instruments, piano, organ, harp might use it. But any instrument that needs a lot of notes and uses both staves and both clefs might use a grand staff. So if you're looking for music and you want to find, does it have a grand staff? The thing you're looking for is the brace. If it has a brace, it's grand staff. It could have 3 staves, doesn't matter how many staves it has. If it has a brace, it's a grand staff. Middle of the page, they give you all the notes on the piano versus all the notes on the written music. Oof. Then they talk about sharps and flats. We'll get to those later. They talk about time signatures. I talk about those all the time. You'll get them. Page 5, you got notes and rests and all that junk. We'll talk about that a little later. Intervals. It's a little early to be thinking about intervals. I'm going to skip intervals for now. Some people think they're very important, learn them up front. I haven't found a need for that. We can talk about them later. And then at the bottom of the page, there's some terms and things, and we'll talk about those in the pieces. So that's all that. We'll cover it later. Don't worry about it. Now, for March On, let's look at, because we got stuff going on. You got the grand staff, remember that? Then we got notes. And the idea here of C position is you take your 5 fingers in each hand, and you're going to put each finger on a note on the piano next to each other, and the bottom note in each hand is going to be a C. Well, that's fine if you know what a C is on the piano, and you need to. A C, the note C on a piano, is simply the lower of a group of 2 black keys. That made no sense at all, so let me explain it. Look at the keyboard. It's arranged very neatly. You've got groups of 3 black keys, and you got groups of 2 black keys. And they just alternate one after the other. Well, a C is you find a group of 2 black keys, any 2 group of black keys, doesn't matter what they are, and you take the note below them right there. So there's 2 and it's right there. So that's a C, and that's a C, and that's a C, and that's a C, and a C. They're all C's. It's got C's all over the place. You see? So in C position, we're simply going to put the lower means going down. Up means going up. You can hear the notes go up. Lower means okay. You take the lower, if I take 5 fingers here, and I put the thumb on C, then the other fingers go on the other keys. That is a C position. And then in the left hand, it's the lower, which would be the little finger, and that would be a C position. So each hand now is in a C position. Now there's lots of C positions, because I can go here, or here, or here, or here, or here. Which C position do you want? Well, that's what the music tells us. Which C position we want. You need to know what a C is in the music. Well, there's lots of C's in the music, obviously, because we got lots of C's on the piano. At the top of the page on page 6, they tell you what they are. I'll leave it up to you on how you go about learning these notes in the music. Different people use different, and you can Google it. You can search out people. There's different methods or different ways of learning the notes. Use any method you want, I don't care. But sooner or later, you're going to have to know the names of these notes in the music. So, our first one in March On, that first note in the upper staff there is a C. That's where the thumb is. And you'll see it's not in that, there's 5 lines in a staff, and this is on a line underneath it. We call that C, by the way, middle C. It's not middle C because it's in the middle of the keyboard, because it's not in the middle of the keyboard. It's called middle C because it's in the middle of the grand staff. Now, I'll talk more about that as we go through the book. So when we refer to middle C, we're referring to this C that's close to the middle of the keyboard, right in front of you. It's not up here or down here, it's the one right in front. That's middle C. We use it a lot. So here, the first note is a middle C, and you just go up the alphabet, C, D, E, F, G. C, D, E, F, G. So in the first line there, all those notes in that upper staff are going to be played with the right hand in C position, and you just go up. C, D, E, F, G, 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 F. Like so. Simple as that. Now you need to know the names of the other notes on the keyboard, because when they go up the staff like that, like a line, space, line, space, line, it just goes up. Well, it goes up the keyboard one note at a time. So you can actually put your hand in just by knowing the notes and they're going up one note. You can just go up the keyboard one note. You don't need to know the name of the note. Like so. Okay. But it's really important you learn the names of these notes, so I'm asking you to go ahead and take the time and memorize the names of these notes. That's a C, a D is in the middle of the two, and we got lots of D's because you got 2's all over. So they're all D's. The D here is right above middle C, so it's here. The next note is an E. Well, that's in above a group of 2. So we got E's here and an E here, all E's. Well, the bottom line in the staff, in treble clef, that's an E. I didn't tell you what treble clef is. I'll come back to that. E, and then we got an F is the space, and then the G is the next to the bottom line there. You need to know the names of the notes in the music. And you need to know the names of these keys on the piano. There's only 7 keys you got to learn. And 5 of them are used here, so you only got 2 more to go. So just memorize them as best you can. It goes up or down the alphabet. C, D, E, F, G, and once you get to G, you start over with A, because we only A. There's no H. A, B, C, whatever. So you just go up and down the alphabet. Then you learn to say the alphabet backwards, and you got it. So it's G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, and you start with G again. So you're going up and down the alphabet as you go up and down the keyboard. Whatever it takes to help you learn them. Eventually you just got to memorize them so you know instantly what the note is. Now that I've got you thoroughly confused, let's look at the bottom line there. Now this is the bottom staff, and now the left hand's going to do it. It's the same notes. We're down here on this C. It's the space. The next to the bottom space, that is the C. It is 1 C below middle C here. So you put the hands here. And you're just going up the keyboard. Like so. Just like the right hand did. That's simple enough. C position. We used all the notes in C position in each hand. It's up to you to memorize the names of the notes in the music. How you do it, as I said, is up to you, but it's important that you do. Now, we're going to be using these notes quite a bit, so I'm going to keep drilling it into you. Now, what else is, we got more symbols in here we need to know, because you see these symbols, everything in the music has a purpose for being there, it wouldn't be there. So you need to know what it is, and they're throwing a lot at you right at the beginning. Isn't that lovely? Well, look at the beginning of each staff. You see those funny looking signs there? In the upper staff, that funny looking sign is called a treble clef, or a G clef. clef sign. It's a clef sign. It simply tells you that where the note G is on the staff. Because if you know where one note is on the staff, you can figure out all the others by going up and down the alphabet. And the G on the treble clef is right in the middle of that curve there. The bottom curve, not the upper turn, the bottom curve. The line that goes right through it, that's the note G. And it's the G above metal C. There's metal C, it'll be this G on the piano. And here it's those two notes. It was go G. Those are it. Those are in the next to the bottom line on the staff. That's the line that goes through the middle of that curl in the treble clef or G clef. If you know what that note is, you can figure out all the others. This comes clear over time as we go through this more and more, so that's all right. If you're not getting all this, it's okay, because we're going to go over it forever. Yeah. Then in the bottom staff, it's just a curl with two dots. It's called a bass clef or an F clef. And the reason is because the line between the two dots, that's the note F in the staff. And the F on the piano is the F below middle C, so it's this F. And F is the bottom of a group of three. And you got lots of Fs on the keyboard, but only one of those Fs matches this F in the music, and that is the F below middle C, this one. So that's the line between the two dots. And if you know where the F is, you know where you can figure out all the others. And that's what that, so they're clef signs, those two funny looking things. And then you see the brace at the beginning, that identifies it as a grand staff. Now there's other stuff in here we need to go over, but I want to kind of wait. I'm pouring it all into this lesson. I want to give some of it to another lesson. So the first thing to do is make sure you can play the notes. So we put both hands on the keyboard and we just play the notes. The first line, second line, as far as how you push them down, whatever, I'll talk about that more in the future. Right now, just relax and push them down. I use the weight to push them down because I don't hold my hand still and try and use the fingers. I don't agree with that. I use the weight. I let the weight push the notes down. So my wrist is actually kind of going down with each note here. Now, we got to add rhythm. Music has rhythm. That's long and short notes. And which notes are short and which notes are long and how short are they and how long are they and wow. Well, that's where the time signature comes in. You see at the beginning of each of those staves there's a 4-4, two fours stacked on each other. That's the time signature. Each number means something, and you're going to get these over and over and over, and I'll talk about them over and over and over, so we'll get there. The top four tells you how far you have to count. You get to count in music. You're just going to love it. I know you are. We're going to count to 4, and then we're just going to repeat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if you're going to count, it'd be nice to know what you're counting, and that's what the bottom 4 tells you. The 4 stands for quarter note. I know that's a weird thing. It's like 1/4, a quarter of something, a quarter note. You're counting quarter notes. Well, you said, well, that's wonderful. So what's a quarter note? Glad you asked, I'll tell you. A quarter note is, look at the very first note in each line. You have C's here. It's a solid circle with a line. That's a quarter note. You're counting those. There should be the same as 4 of those in every group between the vertical lines. So you look at the first 4 quarter notes, it's in a group between vertical lines, it's in a space by itself there, an area. 4 quarter notes, that's good. That's how far you got to count. And then cross that, see that vertical line? Well, then now you got an open circle with a line. That's called a half note. Think of a whole, because we do have whole notes, a whole of something. If you cut it in half, you get 2 halves. Well, a whole note, there is a whole note. there's two half notes is the same as a whole note. Cut the half note in half and you get a quarter note. That's what the quarter notes are. Each note, it just divides in two. So we're counting quarter notes in the first measure. And measure, I used the word measure. I gave it away. All right, fine, what's a measure? A measure is the space in the staff between those vertical lines. It's called a measure. It's also known as a bar. You might say the first bar or the first measure or whatever. It's the space between the vertical lines. We refer to measures a lot. So the first measure here is these quarter notes. Then you have that line, and it's called a measure line. Makes sense, or a bar line, either one. Then you have these two half notes. That's in the second measure. And since a half note is the same as two quarter notes, it means you're going to hold it down for two counts. Because the quarter notes you hold down for one count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the half notes you hold down for two counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Makes sense that they're longer than quarter notes. And the next measure, the third measure over, the quarter notes again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the next measure, it is a half note with a dot behind it. A half note with a dot behind it. We call it, you ready for this? A dotted half note. I know, I'm here all week, don't worry about it. Well, just memorize right now that a dotted half note is the same as 3 quarter notes. A half note is 2 quarter notes, the dot just adds another quarter note. So you're going to hold it down for 3 counts. 1, 2, 3, and then you lift up. So that first line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you come up on beat 4. Beat 3 ends when beat 4 begins. Does that make sense? And that funny looking squiggle thing there after the dotted half note kind of looks like a bird diving down. Really helps to have an imagination if you're going to study music. It really does. The bird diving down. That is called a quarter rest. It's the same as a quarter note, except instead of playing a note, you're quiet. You're silent for one beat. So here so that is 1, 2, 3 rest for one beat. Then in the second line, it's the same thing. You got quarter notes and half notes just like you did in the first line, except now the left hand gets to play it. So the second line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're up on 4. The hand is up. I don't know about you. Now, so if you want to play the whole thing, both lines, you just keep going. Put both hands on the keyboard, and it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, rest. And that's how it works. It's how all music works, sort of. Now they have words in between the staves, so you can sing if you want to. The CD, they want you to say the names of the notes, and that's a good idea, but when I say names of the notes, I don't worry about the rhythm. I just say the names of the notes. C, D, E, F, G, 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 F, E, D. So I don't worry about rhythm. Just say the names of the notes, and for a while yet, until the names of the notes are automatic to you, you need to do that. On every piece that we cover, until you get it, you need to go through and say the names of the notes and play them. Both staves, the whole thing. Then the second verse they show it, because there's a 1 and a 2 verses, the words, there's 2 lines of words. Then it's singing. March on up the keyboard. I don't sing in my videos. There's no sense in shocking you too much. You can sing it if you want. I don't care. I can't hear you. It doesn't matter. So But to me, singing just makes it harder, because not only do you have to concentrate on the notes you're playing and the rhythm and all that, now you got to sing a word too. I'll leave that up to you. If you have a teacher, between you and your teacher. I don't push singing in my videos. It's the playing I'm after. Now, in the middle of the page, in a little whatever color box that is, there are practice directions. This is this book's impression of how you can practice the pieces for not just this piece, but from now on. Everybody develops their own system of practicing and their own ways of doing things. I don't push them in the videos. You can do that, or your teacher can go over that with you, but if you want to go through and do all of those things, that's entirely up to you. But all I'm pushing is, you know the names of the notes, and you can count out correctly, the rhythm correctly, and do the play with me so you can play along with me. Now the play with me you do after you've learned the song. So you can, because you can't have any hesitations, it has to be a steady count. Now, one more thing I want to cover, and that is at the end of the second grand staff line, at the very end, you see a thin and thick bar line with 2 dots. It's called a repeat sign. It simply means repeat it or play it again. So in other words, to play this correctly, you'd have to play it twice. And that's what I would like to do right now with you. I want to play it really slowly with you and have you play it with me. Are you playing the same note I'm playing at the same time I'm playing it? That's what we want to check. If you have a teacher, they'll tell you if you get it wrong. If you don't have a teacher, how do you know if you're doing it right or not? Well, play along with me and compare what you're doing to what I'm doing. So I'm going to count us in. I'm going to give us 4 counts. I'm going to go 1, 2, ready, go. That's 4. And then we start really slowly. We're going to play both lines, and then we're going to repeat and play the lines again. So let's try that. So go ahead and put your hands in C position. Here, you'll have to push down on them. I like to push down because I like to make noise. It's just me. Now the idea of having 2 lines of words like they do was a 1 and a 2 there, and we call them verses or whatever you want to call them, is because you're going to play it twice, the repeat sign. Then if you sing it, the first time you'd sing the top line, and after you repeat it the second time, then you'd sing the bottom line. That's how that works. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest.